On the show this morning is the grand poobah of the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, Rick Esenberg. Good morning, Rick. How are you?
Hey, Meg, how are you doing?
Good. I don't know if you prefer grand poobah for your title. I suppose there's.
Well, it's not official.
Okay.
It's not the official title, but it's okay.
All right.
I'll answer to it.
I know you actually literally are the president and general counsel of Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, one of our frequent guests on the program. But I asked you to join me this morning to talk specifically about the attacks from, as I refer to her, no jail Janet Protasiewicz, and actually attacking Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to clear that up.
Well, the problem with this charge, and it's one that's been made before and debunked before, is that it's false. The claim that she's making is that Dan Kelly had strong associations with the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, should have recused himself from cases that we brought before the court but didn't do it. The reality is that when we started Will in 2011, we had a litigation advisory board, and that board met twice, once in September of, I may get this reversed, but once in September of 2011 and once in August of 2012. It never met again because we found that it wasn't particularly helpful. Dan was originally a part of that, but before he went on the court, even though it hadn't met for 4 years, he disassociated himself from it. And so he had no close ties to the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, and there was no obligation under the law or any ethical code applicable to judges that required him to recuse himself. She complains that certain people associated with Will have made campaign contributions, but once again, the Judicial Code of Ethics specifically state that a judge need not recuse himself or herself from a case in which some of the lawyers have donated to the campaign. And in fact, if judges were required to do that, they could literally hear no cases because lawyers are among the most frequent contributors to judicial campaigns. So, this is all much ado about nothing. And what really bothers me about it is that this has come up before. It came up in 2016. It came up again in a case that we had in Eau Claire, and it's been debunked every time. The Journal Sentinel even recognized that it wasn't true, and yet this claim continues to be made. And when someone continues to make a claim that has been demonstrated to be false, it's very, very difficult to dismiss it as an honest mistake.
Well, and I know that says a lot right there. I was going to ask you, why do you suppose that Janet Protasiewicz and her surrogates are being so dishonest in their campaign? Is it possible that they realize that she's not qualified to be on the state Supreme Court?
Well, you'd have to, I guess in the end of the day, you'd have to ask them, are they incompetent or are they just, intentionally, saying something that they know isn't true? I can't speak to that. You'd have to be, I think, pretty reckless to make an accusation like this. Janet Protasiewicz, people. This is, I think, a common misperception that people have. People say, well, look, this person has been a circuit court judge, and that means that they're somehow qualified to be on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. That doesn't follow. The job of being a justice on the Wisconsin Supreme Court is very, very different than being a circuit court judge. And, Dan Kelly practiced law at the highest level. He was on the Wisconsin Supreme Court for 4 years. You might like the way he handled himself. You might dislike the way he handled himself. But with respect to his opponent, I think, and I'm not, Will doesn't endorse anybody for a public office. I have my own personal preferences, so I'm speaking for myself now. She doesn't, particularly have a record of dealing with complex legal issues. Circuit court judges don't do much of that. It's a lot of day-to-day stuff. It's very, very important. I'm not dismissing it by any stretch of the imagination. But, we don't have a record as to how she will handle these issues. I think that the signal that she's clearly trying to send is that she's, part of the left progressive legal movement. And that means, and I'm sorry, but anybody who's been to law school understands this, that somebody who's part of the left progressive legal movement is someone who believes that judges have a great deal of discretion to impose their policy preferences. And so the criticism that Dan Kelly is making of her, I think, is a valid one, and that when she, talks about her values, she's really showing that she doesn't understand what the role of a judge should be. A judge is not supposed to impose his or her values. That's not what we elect judges to do. We elect judges to use the tools that lawyers use to determine what the law is and to apply that. They do not make policy. Legislators make policy. Now, to be sure, it's not a mechanical process. When you interpret the law, you're going to be affected by your view of what the Constitution is for, but you're supposed to be looking for a source of authority other than your own values or preferences. That's not what the judicial role is.
So these outright lies that Janet Protasiewicz is stating in her television ads, is there any recourse for that? I mean, I know that you've called to have the ads removed.
Well, look, I mean, I suppose that if I'm not sure that one couldn't make out a case for defamation of our organization, but I mean, we're not going to.
Uh-oh. I just lost you, Ben.
Anybody believes these charges.
Well, you know what? Do you mind repeating that? Because I lost you. I think just a cell phone glitch, or maybe it's the NSA spying on us.
Yeah. Well, if we're trying to hide from the NSA, being on a radio station probably isn't the best way to do it. But
right, I don't know what they're getting at.
Look, I mean, maybe, we could make out a case for defamation here. We don't intend to do that. I don't think anybody believes this stuff. But I do find it frustrating because I think this is a very, very important public office, and I really would like to see the candidates conduct themselves with the type of rigor and care that we expect judges to exercise. And I just don't think when you run an ad like this, you're not displaying the capacity to do that. And, maybe it's some consultant's fault. I don't know. I'm not accusing anyone of anything in particular. But what I am saying is that that this charge is inaccurate, and whomever was responsible for making it should have known and would have known had they conducted the simplest form of inquiry, but it simply isn't true.
So can you comment on these stories that have come out about Judge Protasiewicz and her abuse of her former husband, and then also evidently when she was an assistant DA in Milwaukee County, she made some racist comments. Are you able to comment on either of those and whether or not they disqualify her?
I don't know anything about that. I'm a little taken aback at the lack of interest that has been displayed by some people in the mainstream media. I mean, I think, I'm not saying that these things are true, but, I would like to, I think voters do have an interest in hearing what, she has to say about them and what evidence there is to back them up. But I don't know that we're having that conversation right now.
Well, it's unfortunate, I think. I mean, it's radio silence from anyone other than conservative talk radio, as far as I can determine. I know that Dan Bice from the Milwaukee Journal is well aware of this and has sat on this story, and it's frustrating because I think it says a lot about her temperament and whether or not this behavior disqualifies her from even running for state Supreme Court?
Well, I mean, again, I think that when allegations like this are made, it's important for candidates, and I think this is true, no matter who the candidate is, to, to respond and to tell us, is this what happened? Is this true? Is it not true? Is it partially true? I think voters have a right to know that. I'm certainly not. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. I didn't interview these witnesses, so I'm not expressing any opinion one way or another. But it is the kind of issue that will arise in the vetting of a candidate, and they need to be responded to.
Yes, and it's unfortunate that her campaign hasn't made any response at all, which really, I think, speaks volumes. Well, in our remaining minute or two, I know that there was a press release that went out just yesterday, and I'd had another, I believe, if I remember correctly, I had Kate Spitz on the program last week to talk about this ESG bill that now I hate to use the term president, I'll just say Joe Biden vetoed. Can you comment on that and I guess Will's next move?
Well, I mean, we filed a lawsuit challenging the Department of Labor rule that Congress attempted to rescind and a rescission that Joe Biden vetoed. The problem with the rule is that of all the various factors that an investment fiduciary would use, this rule announces that ESG factors are relevant and can be considered. Now, the problem is that if they are relevant to risk and return, there's no need for the rule because a fiduciary would always have been obligated to consider them. If in fact these factors do bear upon the propriety of a particular investment. If they don't bear on it, then they shouldn't be considered because an investment fiduciary is not there to advance his or her political objectives, but to protect your retirement savings. And I think what the rule is trying to do here is put a thumb on the scale and push investment fiduciaries away from what it is that they're supposed to do by sort of singling these factors out. And generally in the law, if something is singled out, we presume there's a reason for it. I think that there's a danger that the rule is going to be interpreted to compel fiduciaries to consider these issues. And that's not what the law traditionally has been. That's not what the controlling federal statute provides for, and that's the basis for our challenge.
Yet another example of how our 401ks aren't safe from the Biden administration. Rick Esenberg, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I appreciate it. Rick, again, is the president and general counsel of Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, and if you need more information, go out to their website, will-law.org. Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate you getting up early to join us on the show this morning.
Thank you. Take care.
Keep up the great work.